Hey there, welcome to Anthony Reviews, where Anthony reviews. I am a big fan of Mattel's DC Universe figures. From the superheroes line to DC Universe Classics to the then sort of muddied waters of the rest of their years. DC Universe Classics is actually what got me into 6-inch figure collecting in the first place. I really loved the wide array of characters available, and especially towards the end there, it felt like it was nothing but sort of home run characters, in my opinion. But around the later end of Mattel's sort of run, it felt like things were not progressing appropriately. In all honesty, I think around 2016 is when things started to fall apart. So that's what I would like to do in this video today, is we are going to be discussing the DC Multiverse line, not from McFarlane, no. We're going to be talking DC Multiverse from Mattel. So let's get started. So starting off in 2016, it's a big time for DC Comics. We've got new movies, we've got popular TV shows, we've got DC Rebirth going on around that same time. It's a big deal. And so, after DC Universe Classics sort of fell off and Mattel tried some different things with their signature collection and All-Stars and some Batman-related waves, they decided, okay, we are going to get back into the game, available wherever toys are sold, a 6-inch line just like we used to, and here we go, DC Multiverse. And I feel like it was just a time of no learning. That's what it felt like to me. Meanwhile, you have with Hasbro, their Marvel Legends line, it feels like a vast improvement over the last few years of figures. You look over at the DC figures and they seem like they're a decade behind everyone else. Maybe not a decade, maybe that's a little bit much, but you'll get what I mean when we get into the figures themselves. So let's start off. As I mentioned, in 2016, we've got a few movies coming out, and they sort of capitalize on that with the Batman vs. Superman waves of figures. The Build-A-Figure, I guess, Collect and Connect, whatever you want to call this thing, was a grapnel blaster from the hit film Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And in this line, you get a Superman, a Batman, a Wonder Woman, Armored Batman, a Lex Luthor, a Bat Creature, as it's labeled, Nightmare Batman. You get a whole bunch of varying figs. And I don't know, just something about these figures feels so limited. Part of the problem really does come from the fact that these are also an evolution from Mattel's Movie Masters line. Before, in the earlier days, you had the 6-inch scale DC Universe Classics figures. You also had Movie Masters, which were at a slightly smaller scale. Things for The Dark Knight, Green Lantern, Man of Steel. So to sort of continue the Man of Steel toy line in their DC Multiverse toy line, you have these very small, very limited figures. A very decent amount of sculpting, but articulation is so far behind, especially, like I said earlier, compared to some of the Marvel Legends figures at the time. This is 2016, so compare this Batman or Superman to some of the Marvel Legends coming out for Civil War or Doctor Strange. Not stellar figures, but clearly there's a bit of a difference in terms of the likenesses, the articulation, everything. And combine that with a movie, which, if you have your own opinions on, good for you, wasn't exactly a stellar film for a toy line, I would say. Didn't really work. Wasn't a great kicking off point for this line. But not just movie stuff, we also did get waves consisting of comic books and TV shows. So some of the earliest stuff shown off was actually this wave here, the Justice Buster Collect and Connect wave, which featured a 0-year Batman, a Flash, Reverse Flash, and Arrow from the CW TV shows, a Joker figure from the recent comics, and the Earth 23 Superman, aka President Superman. So we got a little bit of half and half in terms of comic books and live action representation. Once again, you gotta remember that this is 2016. The CW shows are hot, they're cool, that's the same thing. Either way, they were very, very popular. So I don't blame Mattel for wanting to get in on the popularity of the new DC TV shows. That being said, as you can see here, the likenesses just aren't super great at all. And meanwhile, the comic book figures, while they are kind of neat, don't really bring anything interesting to the table, I would say. We've got a Joker new head based off of the current comic book look from Greg Capullo, as well as a Batman based off of his artwork as well. And I would say probably the coolest addition would probably be President Superman himself, just because it's a newer character, it's an exciting thing to add to your universe. Maybe won't fit in exactly with your DC Universe classics, but at least it's a character that had never been in action figure form before now. So there's that. And then, of course, the Collect and Connect figure was a big armored Batman suit that had made, I think, one appearance in the comics at this point. It's a cool toy, I guess. Not exactly high on collectors' lists. So it just, nothing super exciting about this. But hey, it's a start, I suppose. We had another sort of combination of live action and comic books next with the new 52 Collect and Connect Doomsday figure. Now, this Doomsday is a departure from the 90s version. The Mattel company had also done a version of Doomsday based off his 90s rendition as a exclusive back in the day, so this is sort of a consolation prize. I'm assuming a lot of fans wanted that classic look. This is fine for what it is. It's just kind of, like I said, it feels very consolation. Not exactly the big ticket item. But we do have quite a few figures in this line. We have CW's Supergirl. We also have the jumpsuit Lex Luthor, prison jumpsuit Lex Luthor. We have a bunch of Dark Knight Returns figures, including a Carrie Kelly Robin, an armored Batman, and the Mutants leader. And then we also have a doomed Superman from the recent comic books, which features a very Doomsday-ified Superman. Yeah, it really did feel very similar to the pre-DC Universe Classics days, where they really focused on Batman and Superman because that's all they had. But clearly they have more than that right now, but it is sort of focusing on what have we not done yet in the realm of Batman and Superman. I think doing Dark Knight Returns figures is a brilliant idea because that's a fairly popular comic book. It's got a lot of different designs, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure a lot of these figures, to sort of replicate the Frank Miller art style, use the Masters of the Universe Classics bodies to give it that bigger, bulkier feel. We also did get some other Dark Knight Returns figures that year, with an exclusive Superman, an exclusive Batman figure, as well as the son of Batman, sort of those guys. I guess you could buy multiples of those, if I remember from the comics. Good for them. And lastly, we did receive a 2-pack featuring Batman and Superman in a very stylized approach to represent the comic itself. So after that, obviously, 2016 still has a big movie release coming out that summer. That is David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Now, I say that, and now I'm sure people will be saying, like, no, this isn't David Ayer's Suicide Squad. This is Warner Brothers' Suicide Squad, or Jeff Johns' Suicide Squad. Whatever it is, it's a movie that came out in 2016 that featured the team Suicide Squad. And I think, personally, just due to the heavy amounts of actor likenesses that we have to portray in this line, this may be one of the worst that I think they had to offer. We get characters like Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Joker, Katana, Captain Boomerang, as well as another Batman figure because he was in the movie for a couple minutes, so you might as well throw in a Batman. And we also did get some variations of this. We got some different Jokers, different Harley Quinn. We also ended up getting Rick Flag and El Diablo. There was just a lot to go through, and maybe they thought this movie was going to be a really big hit, and it did make a decent amount at the box office, but I would say most people you talk to today can say that Suicide Squad is one of the worst, if not the worst, DC film in recent history. But of course that's debatable depending on who you are. I think that these figures look terrible. They're so extremely limited in articulation. The likenesses aren't great. They're just so basic. I don't know. I can't get around how lame they look. And once the movie comes out, it only drives home how undesirable these versions of the characters are, especially if you're a comic book collector. These aren't going to be the versions of the characters that you want. And I think by the end of this year, we all just wanted the Suicide Squad to sort of go away, and that's not what you want for a thriving toy line. I didn't even mention that the Collect and Connect for this line was Killer Croc, so there's that. Moving into 2017, not a whole lot of growth, but I guess there is minor changes. We have a few more movies coming out. They still want to try to tackle as much live action stuff as they can, including the TV shows, but I feel like it is just a continuation of 2016. So not a highlight. One of our first waves here is the King Shark wave that I believe is somewhat based on the Flash TV show, but could probably fill in if you wanted to use him for any sort of comic appearance. That included a Batman, James Gordon, that is, a more modern take on Batgirl, CW versions of Hawkman, Zoom, as well as the Earth 2 Flash, and then, of course, another Joker, because we can't get enough Joker. This is, I guess, an interesting way to continue the half and half in terms of live action and comic books. I would say that these probably do better than the straight up live action ones, just due to almost how fully bad those are, versus here, at least you get some comic book characters. Once again though, we are dipping into purely the realms of Batman. We get some modern Batman interpretations and some Dark Knight Returns representation in there as well. Not exactly going to be bringing in the widespread DC universe anytime soon, because all we're doing is sticking with Batman. Not exactly exciting, but hey, you know, it is still newer versions of characters that we've never had before, so at least it's different. Although the very next release, that being a Robin figure, Damian Wayne to be precise, including a Talon mask, would kind of throw that whole idea out the window. More Batman, ladies and gentlemen. More Batman. The next upcoming wave is a bit of an interesting situation. 2017 featured the debut of Wonder Woman in her own solo film to critical acclaim and box office success. But it would seem that that success did not exactly translate to the toy aisle. I don't know if you guys remember it, but I feel like every time I went to a Toys R Us in 2017, the store was filled with Wonder Woman figures. And granted, maybe that's just the mixture thing of boys' toy and girls' audience, and I'm not exactly sure. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that boys can't or shouldn't or wouldn't play with a Wonder Woman action figure. However, I can say, based on my own experience, that these toys filled the shelves, sadly. But we did get quite a few figures. This was a collect and connect for Ares, who is in the film, featured on a completely different design. We've got multiple versions of Wonder Woman, Steve Trevor, Hippolyta. We've also got the other older blonde woman in the film. I can't pronounce her name. But either way, we got quite a bit of Wonder Woman representation here, and I'm sure you can still find Steve Trevor's and probably Rick Flagg's from the previous year in a Five Below near you. Moving into another sort of comic book themed wave, we have the Rookie Collect and Connect wave. Once again, leaning into the modern Batman comic books. Jim Gordon was Batman. He had a big robot suit. I'm sure most of you have forgotten about it by now, despite the fact that it was a pretty decent story. So with that, we've got another version of Batman, this being the Rebirth version of Batman. Actually, this sort of contradicts the whole idea of doing current versions, because Batman is now back to being regular Batman, and the big Jim Gordon robot suit kind of useless. We also have newer characters such as Duke Thomas, as well as Batwing, so good for them. Those are characters we've never gotten in toy form until now. And then representing sort of the live action world, we've got the Atom, Ray Palmer, Brandon Routh, and then a villain featured the Reaper from Batman Year 2. Now this one is mostly comic book inspired, but once again, we're still living in the world of Batman. We've gotten a Batman figure every wave, which is of course not exclusive to the DC Multiverse line from Mattel. You know, the DC Universe Classics would do something very similar with Batman and Superman, so I'm not exactly going to pretend and act as if that was the problem, but you're noticing that we're only sticking in the world of these characters. There are no Flash villains, there are no Green Arrow characters, there is no Teen Titans. It is simply whatever is new with Batman at the time, to which I think is kind of boring. Not to mention that articulation and things like that, as you can see, has not improved in the slightest. Once again, you have to remember that on store shelves, we have Star Wars The Black Series, Marvel Legends, and it's just getting better and better over there. Meanwhile, Mattel seems to be dragging their feet in terms of action figure representation on store shelves. Then we get to what was probably expected to be Mattel's biggest wave of the year. That is the Justice League with the Collect and Connect Steppenwolf figure featuring the redesign, which is interesting that Ares from earlier was designed so early on and they couldn't change it based off of the movie appearance. However, as we all know, Steppenwolf was changed very later due to the theatrical versus Snyder Cut design. I'm not here to get into that, but we do have the sort of Joss Whedonified version of Steppenwolf with the Justice League, which did feature a full team. We've got Superman, Wonder Woman, we have Tactical Batman, we've got Cyborg, Flash, Aquaman, and then we also had some other figures included eventually, including a Mira figure and alternate versions of Batman and Cyborg. So clearly, this was meant to be such a big, huge push for the line. Justice League, a big, huge movie, Avengers-level movie, directed by the guy who made Avengers. You know, taken from the guy who made the previous films. And these figures are just a perfect representation of what's wrong with the line. Once again, not a huge improvement over previous figures. In some cases, I think that this is a downgrade over previous versions. Like this version of Superman compared to a figure from 2013. I'm not going to act like the 2013 one has a perfect representation of Henry Cavill, but I mean, one looks like a doll, and one looks like they tried. That's all I'll say. This figure line just truly represents the end of any sort of creativity, in my opinion. I think these are boring. I think these are uninteresting. We have to get them out to store shelves, and I'm sure people worked on these figures and whatever. They're not particularly great. I think that these are part of the reason, moving on in the future, we'll see that they tried a little bit harder. Just like in 2016, we also did get a 2-pack, this one featuring a comic book-inspired New 52-esque Flash, as well as a movie Flash, maybe just to get Flash merch moving, because I don't know. 2017 also did feature some interesting figure choices. We had a Dr. Psycho Collect and Connect wave featuring a Dark Knight Returns Wonder Woman, as well as the Cassie Sandmark Wonder Girl. I guess just to get more Wonder Woman merch out that year. And then alongside that, we also got some Super Friends representation in terms of Aquaman, Superman, and then eventually Batman and Green Lantern. I'm not entirely sure what was the point of this, other than pushing more Justice League merch and trying to figure out which versions of the Justice League have they not done yet, and I guess the answer was Super Friends. Sure, okay. Also coming out was a Dark Knight Returns version of The Flash, once again just trying to push whatever materials they had. Nothing really new or interesting coming from this, just sort of grabbing what could potentially be popular, and that's about it. Moving into 2018, things begin to change for Mattel and DC. We have a new box style, this being a blue instead of a red from the previous years. And get this, we have new sculpted figures. That's right, we're going to be having a bunch of waves with entirely new bodies, not based on bodies that they had been using for a decade at that point. This is new, this is exciting, and I think this is the point where things start to turn around for Mattel and DC. So starting off the year, we have the Clayface Connect and Connect wave, purely based on Rebirth designs. We've got Green Lantern, Jessica Cruz, Batwoman, Two-Face, Superman, and the one exception to the comic book wave, that being a CW-inspired Martian Manhunter. I think that this is at least an improvement. This is something we should have seen in 2016. We're getting a wide array of characters, brand new design, brand new sculpts. They're not perfect. They may not completely line up with what other companies are doing, like Hasbro, but it is an opportunity to change. And I think up until this point, Mattel was not taking that chance. And now with a wave like this, looking at the Clayface, which is this beautiful new representation of the character, I think it really did feel like Mattel was genuinely trying, and I really, really appreciate that. That mentality does continue over into the next comic book wave that came out that year, that being the Lobo series. This featuring Batman Beyond Terry McGinnis, Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, Kid Flash Wallace West, and Superman based on his Kingdom Come look. Once again, an array of colorful, fun, new characters. A character for the Collect and Connect that fans may have missed out on years ago. It is based on a new design with fun accessories. This really does feel like they're sort of coming down and trying to figure out something. We're getting less figures per wave. However, because of that, we're getting all new things, and I feel like Mattel, and saying it again, is trying. And I really felt like at this point they were on the up and ups, that this was the return of classic style fun for DC and Mattel. The comic book fun continues even more with a rebirth Lex Luthor Connect and Connect wave consisting of Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, Vixen, Spoiler, The Ray, and another Batman figure as well, this time featuring the Gotham by Gaslight design. I don't really like to get into it too much because for some people it matters and some people it doesn't, but I do have to point out the amount of female figures in this line and the lack of peg warming that I saw. For the Wonder Woman toy line I mentioned a year before, we had a lot of very similar colored, sort of brown and drab figures that were not very interesting to look at, but now with this we have a bunch of colorful superheroes that everyone is excited to pick up, and characters that longtime Mattel collectors did not have, like the Ray and Vixen. This just felt so exciting because it was really that balance. I had mentioned before that it was so Batman heavy, and it was ways to kind of incorporate popular Batman things, but only Batman. And here we have a Batman figure, but it's based on a design we very rarely get in action figure form, and it's mixed in with a lot of other things to get fans excited. And we get another version of a character, this being Lex Luthor, that is still relatively current and is something new for fans to want. Once again, I feel like they are just going above and beyond. It could only get better from here, right? Well, things start to level out just a bit with the Trench Collect and Connect wave for the Aquaman movie coming out late in 2018. This was a wave that consisted of just 4 figures, which was sort of the on and off sort of situation currently. And we have Aquaman, Mera, Black Manta, and Ocean Master. Now, compared to figures from the year before, these figures do look like an improvement over the others. They have better sculpts, they have better paints, they genuinely feel like superhero action figures. But the articulation didn't exactly match up what was going on with other figures in the very same year. It felt like it had 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the present, not even the future, the present. And it just sort of came out a little bit less, but in my experience, still a step forward in terms of the overall line. We also did get an exclusive Volko figure, so pretty much all of the main characters in the Aquaman movie were represented in one figure line, which was really cool for figure collectors. Moving into 2019, it seems like hopes would be high for Mattel and DC collectors. 2018 seemed like a very solid year, and we had seen a lot of exciting figures teased at places like Toy Fair and Comic-Con. So, what exactly did we end up getting in 2019? Well, to start things off, we did get some Shazam figures, which were very simple. I don't think that these are great or horrible. We got Shazam himself as well as Dr. Savannah. Like I said, simple figures. I would maybe like it if we had gotten some more characters to sort of flesh it out, but instead we got Shazam himself and a guy in a coat. So, not exactly the most exciting pair of figures, but hey, at least it was something, I guess. But we also did get some comic book inspired waves that year as well, including the Batman Ninja wave, which consisted of several figures, including Green Lantern John Stewart, Flash Wally West, Starfire, Nightwing, Beast Boy, and a CW inspired Black Lightning figure, because yes, the CW was still around to be making figures of. Definitely feels like this was a high point for Mattel DC collectors at the time. A huge range of favorite figures, including things like Starfire and Beast Boy. It was really fun, I would say. Unfortunately, I also do feel like it was a grim reminder of what Mattel couldn't do at the time. While they did feel like improvements over previous years of figures, they still do feel like kind of a limited version of what companies like Hasbro were doing. Not to mention, as we move into places like 2019, we have things like the Power Rangers Lightning Collection line that are coming around and just blowing these figures out of the water, if you ask me. So while DC Multiverse is improving, it does kind of seem like they're still a little behind on the times, and eventually we would learn that there would be no chance for them to get any better. The last official wave to come out of DC Multiverse from Mattel would be the Killer Croc Collect and Connect wave, that featuring Batman, Dick Grayson this time, Alfred Pennyworth, Red Hood, Red Robin, Katana, and KG Beast. This wave really did feel stellar in my opinion. It featured a lot of Batman characters that we all love and are near and dear to our hearts, as well as Batman characters that really weren't around very much in the DC toy line prior. So even though it is still very Batman-centric, it did feel like a great final hurrah for Mattel and Batman in general. I mean, that Alfred is just stellar with all the different heads and everything, so you can really have your own perfect Alfred. Unbelievable. It was new, it was different, but it was the same, and I think that's ultimately what you can say about DC Multiverse from Mattel overall, which is a little unfortunate. There also were some weird items throughout the years as well, including things like movie-inspired figures. They attempt to do things like a Batman Forever alongside Linda Carter Wonder Woman and John Wesley Shipp Flash, and a Returns Penguin, and all sorts of very strange, bizarre choices that almost feel like they were trying anything to sort of maintain an image while sitting next to other similar figures on store shelves at the time. Not to mention countless other exclusives like a Bizarro figure and convention exclusives that were more along the lines of box sets featuring characters from Batman, Aquaman, amongst many others. None of these, though, really captured people's minds and dollars as well as other toy brands, it would seem, because 2019, of course, is the final year for Mattel and DC being partners. Because of this death of the line, we also missed out on figures previously shown but never released. Characters such as Black Canary, Hawk Girl, and others were teased, but sadly, we never got those figures. It would seem that when it was time to renew the DC license, Mattel either passed or was not given the option to renew. As far as we are aware, nothing public was ever made, but it would not be surprising if DC themselves saw what Mattel was doing and thought, hey, maybe we can do a little bit better. Of course, if you are living in the present, as you should be, then you know that McFarlane Toys would get the license in 2020 and come out with a brand new DC Multiverse line, which is loved by many, hated by some, but overall is a huge expansion on the DC universe, especially if you're a Batman fan. I guess some things never truly change. So that's really what I consider the beginning of the end for Mattel and DC in general. It really does seem like they didn't know what they were doing, and by the time they figured out what they could be doing, it was sadly too late. I, of course, continue to be a very big fan of what DC and Mattel did from their DC Universe Classics line moving forward, even into some of the DC Multiverse figures themselves. Sadly, it looks like it was just not the right company anymore. I thank you guys for watching this little walk through history in terms of the DC Multiverse brand. I remember being a toy collector around this time and feeling really disappointed by the figures available around then and hoping that they would improve. So it really was a bummer to see it go, but at the same time, you just felt like it was the right thing. Let me guys know what you guys think of this kind of video down in the comments below. If you have any fond memories of Mattel's history with the DC Universe, or if you'd like to see me go through waves of other toy lines, I would love to do that as well. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I'm at Anthony Lantern on Twitter and Instagram. I also have a podcast that I do with my friend Kirk Beatty called The Grunt, which is available on Apple's podcast app as well as Spotify. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.